Welcome to the new series of North East Insurgency Part 1. This is a brief introduction about all those insurgency groups present in those 7 sisters of India. After that, we will talk about separately of each states present in our 7 sister, that is in the eastern states. I will talk about separate insurgency group present in that state. Moving ahead, we will take an overview, so that you will be able to understand that how these our states are connected and how these insurgency groups are present in those regions. Okay, so now this is your Nagaland is not a part of Assam, so we have a separate concept for that also, that how that insurgency group occurred when this a part of Assam, when the some lands were between the Assam and all. Okay, moving ahead, so the northeast of India is comprised of 7 states. How many states? 7 states. Which are the 7 states? Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram and Nagmani, that is your Nagaland. Okay, so the northeastern state of India is collectively 7 states and is known as your 7 sister states of India. 7 sister states of India. This region has witnessed multiple insurgent movement over the last 70 years, and some of them were rooted to the colonial era. So it is not like that after post independence these issues emerged. Okay, as I've already explained that the independence of India was very complex. Why it was very complex? Because it was a very fast independence to any country. If you watch any western states country, so whenever they got independence and all, it took it was a slow transformation, but for India it was a one-day transformation. Within a night India was divided into India and Pakistan. And the othermost reason is that the India is too much diverse country, so that's why a single policy implementation by a government is not sufficient for all the people present in the country. So that is the one challenge for any groups or any policies. We can't make happy to everyone with a single policy, and because of these issues and some negligence by the government too, we had the formation of insurgent groups in India. Okay, so some of them, that insurgent groups, were rooted to the colonial era and the pre-independence days, and some of them were started post-independence, and some of these are still very much active today and pose territorial threat to India's sovereignty and integrity. So until and unless government takes action, if a particular group is going against the India's sovereignty and integrity, then only government send the security forces to tackle with this one. Okay, so hence it is very important to understand the background of these insurgent movements and current situation. That's why I am making you familiar with an introduction topic, that this lecture is just an introduction. After that we will move ahead state wise. We will see Manipur separately, Assam separately, Meghalaya separately, Tripura, Mizoram and all. Okay, so we will observe that the demographic and geographic position of these areas have helped a lot in enabling these insurgent movements. Why? Because lots of terrains are present in these regions, and due to this presence of terrains, the guerrilla warfare is made by these insurgent groups, because they are aware with the geographical areas present in that group, and if any force, outside force, is sent to tackle with those insurgent groups, so these are outsiders, so for them this is completely a geographical area. Now we have GPS and all, so that we can take the idea of those areas, but previously at that time there was no GPS, and due to this, due to lack of the map of that area, the terrain of the area, so it was a difficult situation, it was a challenging situation for the security forces. Okay, so we can even identify few commands, demands and grievances which have not been addressed by the government of India. It is not like that completely because of diversity present in the country the insurgent groups emerged. Because of some, as I've already said, that because of some ignorance by the government also, the emergence of insurgent groups in India happened. Okay, so but the demands of each group will not be same, because insurgency of one state will be different from the insurgency of another state. So what this statement is saying, that if there is an insurgent group present in Nagaland, and if there is another insurgent group is present in the Assam, what is insurgent group? That Naxalite kind of things. It is not Naxalite. Naxalite is a separate term. Just take it as insurgent groups. These are different kind of terrorists and all. Okay, we call it as terrorist because they are acting as a terror. That's why we call him as a terrorist. Okay, so the insurgent group present in Assam, insurgent group present in Nagaland, insurgent group present in Meghalaya. So we can't treat all these insurgent groups A, B and C as a same one, because each insurgent group have a separate demands. They are not connected with each other. They may have a separate demand. They may have a demand of making independent state. They may have a demand of making a state with an autonomous assemblies and all. They may have something different demands. Okay, so that's what it is saying, that demands of each group will not be the same, because insurgency of one state will be different from the insurgency of another state. Okay, and every insurgent movements are unique, and they are largely rooted in their local concern. What the local concern? Like they have some religions, they have some their own customs, their own religions, their way of another forming of religions. They all are connected with the forest and all environment. They worship environment, and ultimately when government interfere with their environments and all, if they want to develop a dams or coal mines and all, so ultimately they have to destroy the forest. And when you are destroying some forest, ultimately you are destroying their religions and customs, and this make a violent clash between the village or the tribal people living in those areas, and this made a clashes between the government and those groups, and this made a rise of insurgent groups in those regions. So this is just another example that the construction of development on other regions may be like outsider illegal migrants coming into the state, like the Assam one. Assam faced an issue of illegal migrant, and this illegal migration made Assam tribal people violent, and they made an insurgent groups against the government of India. Okay, so these make a rise of these insurgent groups, and ultimately this is the main part of Northeast insurgency. So the 7 states are the Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh and Assam. Moving ahead. So how we are connected with the 7 sisters? See, this is your Sikkim. Okay, and here is your Siliguri part here. Okay, so this is something called as chicken snake, because connectivity of the mainland India is through this part. If this part is blocked, then whole northeast connectivity will be blocked. That's why we call this point as an India's chicken's neck, and it is the most challenging point. Like here is your China and Bhutan, or many countries are there, so they may try to block this in future to cut the communication from the eastern part of the country. So that's why it is called a chicken necks of India. So the first unique geography things come in mind is the connection that connect northeastern states and the mainland India, and the main Indian mainland is connected through a very narrow patch of line, is referred to as Siliguri Corridor. Okay, this is your Siliguri Corridor. Okay, so this is reason it is called as India's chicken neck, because India's strategic establishment has considered the corridor as a strategic weak point or a strategic choke point, because if hostile country like China takes over the Siliguri corridor, then India's mainland will lose the complete access to the northeast of India, and the government of India is heavily dependent on this corridor for connecting the northeastern states. So as a result, the eastern states sometimes facing economical weakness due to this corridor too. And the second unique geographical factors of the northeastern states are the terrains, that I have already said that the different terrains are present, and due to those presence of the terrains, guerrilla warfare took place by those insurgent groups. Okay, so the most part of the northeastern state are hilly terrain and covered with the dense forest, so they are more familiar with those areas, so they fought good like I will say best in the guerrilla warfare. So these two factors provide difficulty in connectivity to these regions, and the infrastructure is further expensive in the than mainland India. Like if you want some development in those regions, so there are mountains are present. So development in a plain land and development in a mountain regions is costlier in mountain regions. Okay. Recently one connectivity is making from the India part to Bangladesh through seaport, and there one road will be constructed here. I will explain this in the separate lecture. Okay, so this provide difficulty in connectivity to the regions. Okay, so India's government has neglected. The issue is that why the insurgent group have emerged. So Indian government, because the Indian government has neglected or even ignored for a long period of time. To whom? To the seven sisters. What they ignored? They ignored the development of those seven sisters. Why? Because of that cost budget issues, or they ignored that part area. Okay, so this compromised the economic development of the region, and lack of employment opportunities, lack of adequate education opportunities. If you are not taking care of those areas, so education, then jobs facility will not be emerged. Like if development means coming of a jobs, and if you are not developing the region, it means what? Job will not arise there. Okay, so this created a sense of alienation, aloneness, loneliness. Okay, this created a sense of alienation among the people of Northeast, which has further enabled various insurgent movements in the regions. Okay, this alienation mindset created by the lack of development in the regions. As our mainland India was getting developed, they were getting better education, they were getting better jobs and all, but the eastern people were not getting those kind of jobs. Further, if we will see in the coming slide, they were attacked by an illegal migration. So the more people were coming into these regions, once and only they don't have a jobs and all. And another, if you are giving more, if you are sending more people in those regions, ultimately clash will happen. And we will see that 90% people in the eastern part of the country are tribal one. So it means what? Tribals are completely dependent upon the forest and all. And if you are sending outsider, it means what? They will exploit those regions. They will exploit the trees and all. And this is not accepted by the tribal people, because the grandfathers and generations have lived there. They worship the nature, and ultimately you are sending the outside people to destroy or to exploit the regions. They will not accept it, and ultimately this will give a rise of insurgency in those regions. Okay, so who are the neighbors present as the seven sisters? So the northeastern states are surrounded by the various countries. These various countries will be like China, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal. Nepal is the left of Siliguri, that is Siliguri. So here it was your Nepal. Okay, so most of these countries were hostile towards India at different point of time. In different point of time they were hostile. Now Nepal is also acting as a hostile one because of the PM, Nepal's PM. But the people of Nepal are with India's only. Okay. Further, they have actively supported the northeastern insurgent groups, and they provided the financial support, arms and weapons, human trafficking, and further extended the support by providing the safe haven inside the territory through which these groups will operate to spread terror in the country. It is saying that so whatever the insurgent groups emerged, from where they were getting the funding? They were getting the funding from the outside countries. I'm not saying they are getting funding from Bhutan or Nepal. I'm just saying it is they were getting funding from outside countries. Outside countries will be something like Myanmar, China and all. Okay, they were funding from these regions. Human trafficking was going on. They were getting safe haven. Safe haven means they were providing the house, or like whenever they want to hide, they provide them by their borders and all. Okay, so this kind of help was is being provided by the international countries to create problem in those regions, as they don't want India to be developed. Okay, and because of these international strategies and all, this kind of help is provided by the outside support. Okay, so the regions have lots of border disputes as well. such as conflict between the India, China, India, Bangladesh. Recently in the 2015, our Modi government has cleared this issue, cleared this conflict, where India sent 111 enclave to the Bangladesh regions, and India received 51 enclave from the Bangladesh, and the people of these enclaves were asked, like, if they want to exchange their countries, they can want, like, if these 51 within the 51 enclave, if one people want to go to Bangladesh, they were allowed to go. Similarly, in this 111 enclaves, if some people want to go to India, they were allowed to go. So this this conflict has been cleared between the India and Bangladesh. Earlier, Indira Gandhi government tried to clear this conflict, but they failed, and ultimately, at the pending of this long back issues, now India in 2015 we cleared this conflict. Similarly, there are many disputes with the, now in the Kala Pani areas and all. India is getting dispute with the China. Actually, China is being manipulated. Sorry, what I have said. India in Kala Pani area, China is getting with Nepal, coming in conflict with the Nepal, and China is manipulating Nepal to do this kind of conflict in those regions. Okay, so the Northeast is serving as a land bridge between India and Southeast Asia. See, this is acting as a land bridge to Southeast Asia for India. Okay, so the the golden triangle includes the southeast countries. Like when we see the golden triangle in the main part, I have explained in the geography lecture. So the Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam and Thailand will include in the southeast countries of the golden triangle, and these region is infamous for organized criminal activities such as trade as narcotics, armed trafficking and human trafficking. And because of these issues, India is militarizing our Andaman and Nicobar. I have made videos on this also. Okay, because of these criminal activities in those regions, India is militarizing those Andaman and Nicobar, and so that they can check over these regions. India and another regions is India want to show dominance in those regions. Okay, because of this international issues, mindset, or challenges, India is, and to make its dominance in those Indian Ocean and all, India is militarizing the Andaman and Nicobar. So if some ship want any help, immediately they will get the help from our military, and here all the forces will be there. Defense will be there, Navy will be there, Air Force will be there, all will be present there. Okay, I have made this separate lecture in a current affair topic, you can watch it. So now the demography and geography of the northeast of India. Basically, these all are terrain, mountains are there and all, and that's why, because of that presence of mountains and difficult terrains, the development in those regions is a challenge for any government, because the cost of development in the mountainous region is higher than the plain land regions. Okay, so the initial information that with this aspect, as I've already explained, so the landlocked region which is linked to the Indian mainland by 20 km wide Siliguri Corridor in North Bengal, as I've already said, that is called as the chicken snake. It is situated between China, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar, with an international border of around 4,500 km, your northeastern state. Okay, all the northeastern states. The regions hold the promises of acting as a bridge between India and Southeast Asia in years to come. Currently we are not open, but similarly in future we will connect more bridges and the roads or the highways to connect with the Southeast Asian countries. There is another one more project that has been connected with the sea. I will talk in the separate session. So the 7 sister states are predominantly tribal, with some states having more than 90% tribal population. So if you take some eastern states, some states have more than 90% tribal people, and if you are sending illegal migrants in those regions, what will happen? Insurgency will happen. People don't want migrant people to interfere their customs, their religions and all, because they worship nature, and ultimately when these outsiders will come, they will destroy those regions. Exploitation will take place. That's why insurgent groups, the more cases of insurgent groups has happened in the eastern states, and still some are active. Okay, so the culture and the migrations that happen, especially the main states that have faced migration is Assam. Okay, so the regions that have lots of diversity as different culture, this region, that northeastern states, so as different culture, language, religions, traditions and practices are happening in those regions because of different kind of tribals people present there, and they have different customs, cultures. So this diversity also becomes cultural disconnect with the mainland India. Mainland India has completely different, and your eastern part is completely different. Eastern part is completely full of tribal people, and they have completely different customs, rituals and all. This made a disconnection between the mainland India. So when India became independent in 1947, and the India Act as a Union of India was set up through the Indian Independent Act, so the Indian government was eager to integrate northeastern states as well, but the native tribes were hesitating to join with the mainland India. Okay, because they felt threatened by a majority of Hindu nation in those regions. Okay, since the native tribes had tried to preserve and protect their cultural identity from being destroyed by the majority Hindu nations, and they gave a demand of sometimes like independent states or autonomous states. These kind of demands have came from all these states. So if we look tribal society, they have a very close connection with the nature and environment as well. So they are mainly dependent upon the sustainable form of resource exploitation, and they exploit the regions. It is not like they do not exploit, but the exploitation is on the basis of sustainable. Like let us suppose they want wood, so they will took the dry woods that have fallen from a tree. For that wood they won't cut a tree, and even if they cut tree, then they will plant another trees, or they will take care of that. There are another trees present in those regions or not. Okay, it will not like they will blindly cut all those trees. Okay, so they practiced, and one more thing important, they practiced a very basic form of agriculture. They are dependent upon the minor forests like fruits, berries, bamboos and all, and produced exploiting, and some exploitation is required, don't think it like. So they depend on the minor forest, and they worship the environment. Okay, they are completely dependent upon the environment. So the forest laws since the British time became intrusive and drastically affected the livelihood and culture. Thus when the Indian government after the independence tried to integrate the whole India, was resisted by the native tribes. When the Indian government tried to make these eastern states as the whole union of India, only the tribal people resisted to combine with the India, and the diversity within even a small territories provide to be difficult to accommodate with the same political administration. And due to this only we will see that eastern states were kept negligence. Development has not been done by the political leaders, because they have complete diversity present in those regions is very high, and the terrain present in those regions is very difficult. So this led to numerous demands ranging from autonomy to complete independence. Like some tribal want autonomous state, few demanded that their cultural and traditional rights should be restored, some demanded that their autonomy should be maintained within the Indian territory, but some other demanded for a separate state in order to protect their cultural and traditional rights. Even for that separate state, these all are acceptable, and few demand complete independence from India. So this is something not accepted. Like if you want complete independence from India, no, this is not completely accepted. Yeah, if you want separate state has been formed many times. Separate state has been formed. Assam was bifurcated many times. Okay, so thus their demand varies from one group to another. And another, that Bengali migration that happened from present day Bangladesh, earlier it was East Pakistan, so present day Bangladesh to the northeast during 1947. One migration happened in 1947, another migration happened in 1971 when Bangladesh get independence from the Pakistan. And in those two situations our northeastern states were attacked by these migrations. They hold these migrations, and after this 1971 also illegal migration is still continued. So this is why this kind of clashes happen, these kind of conflicts happen. This led the emergence of insurgency in those group areas. Okay, so that thus their demand varies from one group to another. Electoral and militant modes and latter also have added considerable resentment that has shown up both in electoral and militant modes. Sometimes they discarded the elections, and sometimes illegal migrants were acted as a what vote bank by the politicians. They made them voter ID card, and if they are getting voter ID card, then ultimately they will be called as an Indian citizens. So giving them greediness of greediness of getting a citizenship of India, they made them as their vote bank. So the regions witnessed a huge migrant during this partition, and then during the liberation of Bangladesh war in 1971, and after Bangladesh was liberated, we are again dealing with the illegal migration. And along with this, we have Rohingyas crisis in the neighboring Myanmar, which has added the refugee problem in the northeastern states of India. Okay, so this was something, because of so much diversity present in the regions of the eastern states, we are facing lots of challenges. And because of these challenges, because of these outsiders coming into the states, lack of development in those regions, government is not giving too much attention to those regions, that made the emergence of insurgent groups in the regions of eastern part of our country. So that the rise of insurgent movements, these migrations have created a demographic problem in the northeastern states, as I've said. So it has led to the socio-economic tension. This further led to the insurgent movements in the northeastern part of India. The same thing that I have said. So located in a volatile neighboring as it has been, India's northeast has witnessed since the 1950s, from the even after just after the independence only, we get the illegal migrant into the northeastern states. So Northeast has witnessed in 1950 large-scale insurgent violence directed against the Indian security forces and the communities, those who come from the mainland India. Many a times Biharis were attacked in the eastern states as they were working as a worker in the tea gardens, and ultimately they were treated as migrants, outside migrants, because they were not from the eastern part of the country, and many a times they were killed. Too much conflict have been happened. Sometimes Biharis are being killed in Assam regions. Okay, so but it has witnessed a frequent fighting among different ethnic militias, such as Nagas share a history of enmity with Manipur. It is not like that eastern states are united. Within the eastern states, we will see these groups are fighting within each other also. Thus Nagas had a history of enmity with the Manipur. Here Nagaland, here will be Manipur. Okay, so the pre-independence did not face such major challenges before independence, but after independence we faced it. And till the when we didn't get the independence, British had made a very good relation with those regions, as British want to exploit those regions, and these regions was making connection when the World War II was happening. This eastern part of countries helped him a lot during the Japan's attacks and all. Okay, so pre-independence did not face such major challenge. The British were loyal to these tribes with respect to the exploitation of the regions for the resources present. In return, British were getting resources, and in return they were getting autonomy was given to them. Okay, but post independence, India tried to integrate those all regions, which is too much diverse, culturally very rich. The culture of these eastern states and the mainland India was completely different, and within the states there were too much diversity. Too many tribal peoples were there, and even them also clashes were going on. Okay, so it was a main challenge for the India, and this integration was actively resisted by the native tribes when the India wanted to collide with this mainland Union of India, when they want to collide with the eastern part of the country with the mainland India. Okay, so the Northeast is surely the one area of post-colonial India where the outbreak of insurgency has been frequent than anywhere in the South Asia. Northeast states of India, the kind of insurgency happened in this area, the kind of attack happened in this area, no any South Asian countries faced such kind of insurgency. It is the India only. With the supports of outsiders, they were getting funds, they were getting weapons and all, and they were attacking it. So where recourses to armed rebellion as first option has been the first for them, rather the last option for recalcitration of tribe or the large ethnic groups, and the domestic angle part of hostile countries, the regions have added a fuel to the fire, like helping by the domestic countries like China and all to those insurgent groups is acting like a fuel to the fire, giving petrol, like throwing petrol on a fire. Okay, and they were becoming more insurgent, more ferocious for us, for acting as if they were starting to killing our security forces and all. Okay, so when we see their demand, actually if we see for the demand, we will find that insurgent groups have a genuine demands. It is not like that they are making something out of the box contest. We ignored these regions. We did not make any kind of development in those regions. Government did not took care for those regions. And ultimately, if someone is not getting jobs, if someone is not getting money, if someone is getting illegal migrants from the outside because of the international policies and all, ultimately they will raise arms against us only. So that's why it is saying that their all demands are not fine completely. They have a groups of genuine demand also, but that government must fulfill it, and government is working on it. Yes, it is true that it has been late, but still we are working on it. But whereas some have made demand that is completely unacceptable and injustice demand, like we want independence from the country India. This is not possible. We can't give independence to any particular state, because let us suppose if we give independence to a particular state A, then another state B will also ask, give me independence too. That's why these kind of demands are not acceptable. Okay, so state was insurgency. If we look upon, each state have insurgency except your Arunachal Pradesh, but Arunachal Pradesh is acting as a safe haven for them, a path for the safe haven. So insurgency group appears in the following states in the chronological order. So in Nagaland, first it happened, the oldest one is your Nagaland in 1950s. They were demanding the separate independent state, and even when Nagaland was the part of Assam, at the time Nagaland was not separate state, it was within the part of the Assam. Then after we made a separate state as a Nagaland. Okay, so Naga group is the Naga insurgency group is there. We will talk in the separate lecture where I will talk about Nagaland. So this insurgent movement was beginning immediately after the independence. See, 1950 it has been started. We got independence on 1947, and our in 1950 we got our constitution, and in the 1950 only we this Nagaland began has emerged insurgent groups. Okay. Then after in Mizoram it started in 1960. We witnessed the birth of two parallel insurgent movements, that is, one is Mizoram and one is Manipur. These two actively started in the 1960. So it was a huge problem for them. Actually Nagaland is active one, and another Mizoram and Manipur both started at the same time. So the insurgent movement in Mizoram more or less has come to an end right now, but still some groups are active, and whereas the insurgent movement is continuing to be active in the state of Manipur. Okay, and again in Tripura and Assam 1970 both faced insurgent movement was directly related to the illegal migration only. The Assam had the challenges with the illegal migration only by the Bangladesh. First migration was legal in 1947. Then in 1971 when the East Bangladesh get independence and called as the Bangladesh, then also legal migration happened. After that also illegal migration is going on. So this is a burden for that state. Exploitation of that state will increase. That's why raising of the insurgent groups happened in the Assam. Then in Meghalaya in 1992, the last one is in Meghalaya. So the state of Meghalaya, which was set up in 1972 through bifurcation of the Assam, and has dealt with the illegal migration too. So this insurgent group stated to the Meghalaya was formed in 1992. What were the insurgent groups? I will tell in the separate lecture. For all these states, I will have a separate lecture for them. Okay, don't worry, right now I'm just giving an overview for it. I'm just making an introduction for you. So Arunachal Pradesh is one of the region in the northeast which has almost remained free from insurgency of terrorism, and generally there have been and there continues to genuine root causes in the northeast state that have sustained the insurgency. That Arunachal Pradesh did not have any insurgent groups. Okay, and it is, if you see that, it has a close border with the China. So the insurgent groups operating in other 6 states have used Arunachal as their staging ground, because Arunachal Pradesh is located as a strategic location, and it is present at the tri-junction of which countries? 3 countries: India, China and Myanmar. And Myanmar is acting for them as safe haven. So this location has been utilized by the insurgent outfits which are operating it, and other states as a transit point. What do you understand by safe haven? Many times repeating, but they are giving stay for those insurgent group terrorists to protect them from the security forces of India. Okay, so they have used Arunachal Pradesh to transport arms and weapons, to organize funds, and even to find a safe haven. Okay, so the general factors that led to the insurgency in the northeast India. So a sense of general apathy or alienation that made that from the mainstream India, that cut off from the mainstream India, made a factor for insurgency groups. Struggle for identity, because complexity in the relations between the Assamese and the non-Assamese aroused from the perception of Assamese hegemony, which had its root in the time which many of these areas have governed by the Assam kingdom. And as the illegal migrants was coming into the regions, that complexity is increased, that non-Assamese were acquiring the land and all, and this led to rise of insurgency in those areas. Then cross-border factors like the illegal migration that I've just said, and narcotics and organized crime proximity in the Golden Triangle, this triangle which is located in the close of proximity of northeast of India. And because of this only Andaman, we are militarizing the Andaman and Nicobar right now. Okay, and the main insurgent groups of the northeast India, just give a small introduction here. We will talk separately in brief with historical data also. Okay, so the major groups are NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, one. Another is ULFA from Assam, that is United Liberation Front of Assam. Then UNLF, United Nations Liberation Fund, operated in Manipur. Then PLA, People's Liberation Army, operated in Manipur. Remember PWG, People's War Group, were from Andhra Pradesh or Telangana regions. Okay, if we look the name of the above mentioned group, we can observe that it has been inspired by the left-wing extremism ideologies such as the terms from liberation of nationals, liberation socialist and all. Okay, so if you see Naxalism and all, you will understand this thing better. A separate lecture of Naxalism and Maoism has been made, you can watch it. In northeast state, generally outfits are divided on the basis of states only, and initially all were emerged, all were collided together, like your Nagaland and your that is Meghalaya and all, that all were part of Assam. Okay, so after that we get separated on the basis of their identity. So these 4 armed groups have singled out the 3 specific regions, that the 4 groups are most dominant in the areas of operation, and 20 plus organization of them have been established there. The 4 groups have succeeded in sustaining their armed movement for more than 30 years against the government of India. And for peace to descend on the northeast, conflict resolution with these 4 groups will have the greatest impact. Like the government of India have also opened a negotiation with them, peace talk have happened with them, and we are able to work out for a resolution which could end these conflicts. Then we have a biggest impact on stabilizing the India. So it is something like within a group, sometimes intelligence group try to create kind of conflict between a single group, so that so that emergency, like that intelligence bureau will say that be against from the A, I will make you chief minister of that state, or I will make you minister of that state. Ultimately that divide and rule create works there, and they make into their favor, and ultimately they establish the governance in those regions. These kind of intelligence used to be deployed by the government of India through the intelligence bureau, like RAW and all goes there, and they implement in those areas. Okay, So I hope you liked the video. This was a long video. Please subscribe the channel because it is a form of payment you are making me. And if you have any suggestions, if you want any on-demand video lecture, please feel free to ping on my Twitter handle. Thank you.